I care a lot more about me getting into heaven than Hallow having like a couple thousand extra users or whatever. So we take very seriously that everything on the app is in line with church teaching, it's authentically Catholic, and that we're trying to guide people in a spirituality and a relationship with the Lord that's in alignment with church teaching. And hopefully Hallow can be a tool for the church. We were praying about how to structure it. And we were debating like having it be just a small business or like a nonprofit where we give everything away for free, or a startup. You know, obviously Jesus is saying you take the 1 talent and you try to multiply it to 10, or you try to multiply it to 5. What I'd never really thought of before is the amount of risk involved in the person who went from 1 to 10. You're not putting it in a treasury bill. You're not like doing normal trades. You're doing like pretty crazy things. That's the startup. Like a startup goes from 1 to 10. But what we do have is this unique opportunity to reach out to the folks who have most fallen away.
All right, so you went on Tucker Carlson's show, and you're coming here.
Wow, this is
very nice of you.
Bigger than this. This is Matt Fradd.
Oh yeah, Tucker wishes he could get
with
me
Aquinas.
So what was that like?
Tucker was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous because it was certainly the biggest interview I'd ever done. And he could have asked like a lot of very difficult questions. So like I was prepped, and his job, you know, I was joking with my dad. I was like, his job at Fox was to make the most capable like public speakers look like idiots on national TV. Like that's just what he'd come on and he'd be like, no, you're wrong for this and this and this. And he was very good at it. And so I was like, you know, I was prepping all these different questions with all these different things. I had my team like try to psych me out, because it's kind of hard to, I hate public speaking, I hate doing any of this stuff, but it's kind of hard to like practice getting nervous for something, you know, and then talking through it. And so I was like, I had the whole Hallow team, and I was like, okay, I need all of you to be here because that'll make me nervous. And I know some of you, whatever, agree with certain things or whatever, have different opinions. And so I know some of you will be mad or whatever. And so I had somebody who was a big Tucker fan ask me a question in front of everybody, or ask me a few questions, like at the start of the interview where I was nervous. And he came up with some pretty good ones that were like pretty tough. Like explain to me the evolution of the church's teaching on the death penalty and why, and you know. And like, you know, Tucker asking that would be, anyway, so there's a lot of like really tough questions like as a Catholic you would have to answer, which I'm sure, you know, there are infinitely better people than I am to answer them. But anyway, he was incredibly kind. It was just about Hallow and his family. His wife uses the app every day. We got to have breakfast before, and he was like, Alex, I wanted to let you know that my wife, that we do breakfast here before all of my shows. I've had like the most incredible people here that you could imagine from the world's perspective. And my wife has not wanted to come to any of these breakfasts. And she said she has to come to this one. And she like prays with the app every day. And he uses the app, loves it. And so it was honestly a fascinating conversation for him, mostly about, like, it seemed like real genuine interest in like Catholic spirituality, but maybe not framed that way, but like fasting and prayer and silence and contemplative and meditative life. And so it was cool. He was very kind, very generous. It was very nice of him to take it easy on me. So
how did that come about? I'm going to ask you a question which you might not be able to answer, but was it like a sponsorship thing where you went to him with a ton of money and went interview me?
No, certainly not. Okay. I would never do that. He reached out to us when he left Fox, and he said, I am starting a new show, and I am only going to have sponsors on the show. It was his COO or his number 2. I think there was only one other person at the Tucker Carlson network when, because I don't think it had formed then, but they reached out and said, hey, you know, there's only so many people we're willing to partner with for this. We just left Fox. We want to start a new thing. Do you want to partner together? And I was like, I'm certainly open to, for us, it's anybody who's willing to share about Jesus is an honor. And so he called me for like 30 minutes. And it was a fascinating conversation, but he was essentially like, look, I only want to promote products I actually like and I actually use and I trust. And that leaves like 4 or 5 products, and you guys are one of them. And so can I, you know, share about you on my show? And I was like, sure. And then he was like, you know, it's interesting. Like, you know, I've met all these people who are on fire for their faith recently, and they just all happen to be Catholic.
Come on.
And he was like, you know, and he so we talked about like what it means to be Catholic for a little bit on the phone, and he was like, "You should come on my show." And I was like, "Yeah, you know, there's much better people that have on your show than me, but I'm, you know, if you want me to, I'm happy to." And so then it was like, you know, 2 months later, and we booked it to whatever. But
Wow.
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about, you know, preparing for any kind of question. Sometimes it's to your disadvantage though, eh? Like I remember I used to live in Ireland, and I was asked to come on this radio show, this popular radio show in Belfast when we used to live there. We used to live in Ireland, if you know that. And, you know, I had a friend be like, he's going to grill you, because it was about my work with anti-pornography stuff. And so I got really nervous, you know, and I started like freaking out and running all the objections in my head. And I really think if I hadn't have thought about it, and I had have just woken up at 3 a.m, the interview would have went way better. But I thought you did a really good job. You did an excellent job. Why? Because you just kept talking about Jesus.
Well, that's like,
it was so simple. It was so pure. I loved it.
for me, it's just, I mean, again, like of the people in the church who could talk about the church or Catholic spirituality or whatever, I'm like the last on the list. The only expertise I have in any way is the stuff that we've heard through Hallow and then my own journey. And so I was like, you know, and it's tempting often when people like ask a question to just speak as though you're teaching, you know, or like maybe don't tie it back to why you think that, you know? So like somebody will be like, so like why is silence important? And you'll just be like, well, because, you know, this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. But like for me, it's like, well, but actually think what has silence done for me in my life? Or like what has the Eucharist done for me in my life? Or what do we see through Hallow, like through the stories that like the actual experience that I can share? So that, I mean, I certainly needed the practice or whatever, because I just wanted to make sure I didn't say anything that wasn't, you know, in line with the church.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we make sure I gained a much deeper, it was funny because we didn't talk about any of them, but I gained a much deeper understanding of like every topic through there, you know, which I still am, you know, wildly unqualified to talk through, but, and a lot of your conversations help. So I appreciate we owe you.
What
like
do you
half
mean?
of them.
I'm just going to turn.
What do you mean?
You do a great job of just articulating the
okay.
church's teaching on things in a way that isn't abrasive or
Yeah, thanks.
aggressive.
I think what's fun about the show is we have a diversity of wonderful people.
Yeah.
So,
And they do it, yeah.
yeah, they
Most
do
of
it. Just like,
You do
I
it.
throw wood
You
on
do
the
a decent
fire.
job. You do a decent job.
Yeah. And I also think it's so important, and this is something I've learned over time. Stop me if you've heard the story, but I was on this panel in Canada with Jason Everett and these other people. People were asking us questions, and someone asked a question, and I did not know the answer. It had to do with some historical issue within Christianity. But I did not let my ignorance stop me from answering. And I launched into this question, into this answer. I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. And I could feel people realizing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. I could feel the room realize I'm full of it. And even at that point, I could have pulled the ripcord and went, I'm sorry, I don't know. And I didn't even
No.
Instead,
Confidence.
I just kept talking, thinking I will land this plane. And it just crashed and burned. And I was so depressed that night. And it was one of the best things that has ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I've just thought, you know, one of the most excellent answers you can ever give is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I was on Shapiro's show and he asked me about monarchy. And I'm like, I don't know. So talk to someone else.
No.
But that's so great because no one can corner you after that. You're like,
Yeah.
I just said I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so
No, it's great. I agree. The best times of my life in retrospect have certainly been the most humbling. The issue is my dad. So my dad's a lawyer. My dad is like, I love my dad to death. He's, and in terms of like the heroes of my life, it's like outside of whatever, Jesus and Mary and Joseph. It's Saint Teresa of Avila and my dad essentially in terms of how to be a good dad. But he's a lawyer. And so like his job is to like speak with confidence even when he doesn't really. And so he'll be like, you know, he'll get thrown into some like AI litigation thing or something. He's like, you know, I'm like 65 years old. I have no idea. But they like ask, hey, Jeff, what should we do about this? And so you have to like, anyway, so he's very good at speaking about things that he knows nothing about while making it seem like he knows what he's talking about, which is impressive. But anyway, I agree. Your way is probably better, especially when it's the spiritual life.
Well,
like,
I guess it depends, right? Like it would be inappropriate, I suppose, for a lawyer or let's say the president to be like, I don't know.
I don't know.
So you've
What are we
got to
gonna do about
learn
it?
how to be like, look, Yeah.
Yeah.
You understand this, yes? And I guess I understand that there's a rhetorical, game there that you have to play maybe in certain instances, but not when it comes to.
Yeah. Plus, for me, it's an easy. Like, I'm not a priest. I'm not a bishop. I'm not a.
Yeah.
I just,
So
know Jesus.
in the back end of whatever the back end looks like, where you see how many people are downloading your app every day, what did it look like the week after Tucker's show? Was it
Tucker was crazy. It was. Gosh, there was some crazy stat on this, but I think it was like everything other than really the Super Bowl commercial.
Wow.
It was a bigger spike. It was a bigger spike than on the first day, and it was 3 days of the same spike. Because it like the podcast, but podcasts kind of people slowly listen to them a little bit over time. Yeah. But yeah, it was crazy. So like 3 days of our second biggest spike ever for free, which was awesome. Didn't have to pay a Super Bowl commercial.
It's so crazy. If you had have told me, when did I start back in the early days, I started promoting you, right? Promoting.
We have not partnered with anyone for this long at all.
So
usually just
tell everybody
work.
why you continue to partner with me,
work.
Alex.
Well, if anyone wants to advertise with Matt Fradd, I don't know. I mean, honestly, we track. I mean, for us, again, it's like Hallow's goal is to reach out to the folks, especially the folks who have most fallen away, but really anybody who's interested in Christian spirituality. And so we reach out with we have a bunch of different advertising things, a bunch of different marketing things. And in the early days, we couldn't afford to do like a TV ad or anything like that. And so it was just like influencers, individual influencers in some Facebook ads or Google ads or something like that to try to reach out to folks. Most of it still comes through people telling other people about it, friends and family talking about it. But you were one of the first, mostly because we were just a fan of your show. And it's funny, we have like 100 people full-time on the team. And I bet at least 50 of them, we say, hey, how did you first hear about Hallow? And it's through you.
Come on, isn't that
beautiful?
So cool?
It's so
gift.
cool.
I'm like a gateway drug.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
I get people hooked onto Hallow and the Dominicans.
I just got a tweet. I was going to text you this yesterday, but somebody responded to, there was somebody posted on X about converting to the faith. Or no, they said, I'm Protestant, but I love the Hallow app and praying with it. My 5-year-old and I are starting to pray the rosary, pretty interested in the Catholic faith. And then I, reposted that or whatever. And then somebody replied and said, this is my same story. I heard about like Catholic spirituality through Hallow and Matt Fradd and converted to
praise God. Isn't that
the
wild?
church like 5 years ago.
It's funny, you and I were
3 years ago.
having a coffee earlier and we were saying that on the internet, no one has like a median opinion about me. They either think I'm a normie gay communist, like, okay, or like you changed my life. It's really weird if you were to start gauging your identity based on YouTube comments.
No, well, that's humbling though. It'll kick you down.
Oh, but it is huge. It's huge. But I mean, it's so easy to promote Hallow because I mean, I don't know if you remember this. I interviewed an ex-Antifa member.
Yeah, I remember this. It's beautiful.
Right, who heard about Hallow on Pints and started praying the rosary and his whole life changed.
Yeah.
And Andrew Clavin, do you know this?
No.
I had him on the show, gave him a rosary, and he tweeted that he's started praying the rosary a couple of times. And then on a backstage, he talked about how he was using Hallow to do it.
Oh, no
Come
way.
on.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I love Andrew.
No,
He
you're
was
great.
He was so kind.
I don't know what it is about it's literally, I mean, for us, it's whatever. We're big fans of your work, but mostly we're not going to
Well, I think you just
anyway.
gotta believe.
It just works.
You just gotta believe in what you're promoting, and then you're not really selling it. You're just like telling people about this cool secret.
Yeah.
Which Hallow is not anymore.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is 20 years ago, I would not have believed that the #1 Christian app could have been a Catholic app.
Yeah. No, it's cool.
So kudos.
It's cool. Catholics, I mean, I don't know, the church is just so beautiful, and the spirituality that we have. It feels like I don't know, I like to think a little bit like we've led for a while with the church of like, it felt like, I don't know, explaining ourselves. Like, hey, we're defending the reasons why we're Catholic from attacks of why are you Catholic, which is mostly like theological or whatever, which is great and beautiful and true. But then we also have this, I think we haven't really led, or we have this opportunity to lead with the beauty of the spirituality of the faith. And I think like people are just so hungry for that. And like, so rarely do we think about St. Teresa of Avila or St. John on the Cross, like real mysticism, real contemplative life, when I think about, at least for me, when it feels like we're evangelizing. And like that, for me, I think is what people are hungriest for. and it's what we're seeing. But it's cool. It's just for us, we just get to share what the church has had for 1,000, 2,000 years with the world, and people find it really powerful. Which is like the rosary. Like we didn't do anything. The rosary took us like 30 minutes to record in a little seminary in New Orleans, and we did that 5.5, 6 years ago, and it's either number 1 or number 2 always on Hallow forever. Just the same 4 mysteries repeated. It's like no matter what we do, Mark Wahlberg, Jonathan Rumi, whatever, it's just like the rosary. You don't beat the rosary. I mean, so
you guys are doing something
cool.
right. If you can lead people to a historic, solid devotion, and that's the most popular thing on your app, despite these big names you're getting on there.
I think it was like 77 million rosaries have been prayed through the app or something in the last 5 years. Isn't that crazy? God is so good. And we have this phenomenal team who does amazing work at me right now. It's such a fun role because all I get to do is like I boast on behalf of the Lord and our team because I literally do nothing other than sit here and talk to you about it. But no, it's fun. And it's to your point actually earlier about the internet having, it's funny for Hallow it's the same. It's like you either love it or hate it. And that's fine actually. In the earliest days, I've never been very good at, it's fun. I've never been very good at pitching Hallow. You do a much better job of it than I do. But like my mom thought it was a terrible idea the first, like my mom takes her faith super seriously, like a saint of a woman, deeply spiritual. And I like tried to tell her this idea and she was like, oh, that's like this was 5.5 years ago. She was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Or no, she didn't say that. She was like, it's really great that you're coming back to your faith. Like, great because you were terrible. And now you're like, you found
Less
Jesus.
terrible.
So hopefully he fixes it.
Yeah.
And, but she was like, but this is a terrible idea. Nobody's going to use an app to pray. And I was like, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a hard thing to pitch. It's like, well, you're right. You don't need an app to pray. And there's like all these beautiful prayers that you do in silence, even the rosary. Like I love praying the rosary on my own, just with the beads. I love sitting in silence just for 20, 30 minutes, the liturgy of the hours just with a book. I mean, there's all these ways to pray. You certainly, and you don't need an app to pray. It's not like, Google Maps or something. And it's really hard to pitch. It's like, well, no, but there's something about like closing your eyes and plugging in your headphones and then being led in this meditation by Father Mike or Jonathan Rumi or Sister Miriam or whatever. Like there's something really nice. It's like a retreat. But all of those things, like the pitch is you just have to try it. For me, at least, that's the main pitch is just like for my mom. Now she uses it all the time and sends me a text every day when we have a bug in the app. So that's my main relationship with my mom through the app. But the internet thing that you said is, we had this story. It's so long ago now about loving or hating. What came to mind was, so we reached out to Peter Kreeft to do what we used to call sleep stories on the app. This is again, we had like 2.
Yeah. I did Song of Songs.
Yeah, you did Song of Songs.
You know what's amazing about my wife? I don't know if it was amazing, but my wife listens to that while I'm traveling.
No way.
Isn't that so beautiful?
Well, it's romantic. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
The best one though is Dr. Scott Hahn. People need to go listen to Dr. Scott Hahn's sleep story. The joke I would always tell is I'd be like listening to him at like 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep, and then I'd see him in the morning and blush.
Yeah, no. I mean, the tough part for me is I know everybody who's on the app, and so like the early days, Francis is a good friend of mine, and he was the first voice that did most of the recording, and so I would pray with him like all the time, and our whole team does actually, and in like very intimate settings. So you'll be in bed with your wife like falling asleep, and you'll have like Francis in your ear talking to you. But anyway, Peter Kreeft, we reached out and was like, hey, would you be interested in recording one of these sleep stories? And it was during COVID, and he was like, he replied, unless you are intent on destroying the church by framing from within, by framing Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, as a sleeping pill, no, I don't want to be a part of this in any way. I was like, and hang on. I was like, honestly, yeah, Sleep Stories is a terrible title for that. It's
my gosh, what a burn from Peter Kreeft.
And so I was like, well, okay, you obviously hate us, so there's no way that you're ever going to do anything with this, but we have decided to change it just to Bible stories and have them be like, nighttime Bible stories. It's not like to make you fall asleep. It's not like a sleeping pill. It's just to close your day with scripture in a way that isn't like yelling at you, but it's like peacefully said. And he was like, okay, I'll record one.
Is there one on the app?
Well, we tried to, but
He's so bad with technology.
he couldn't-
So people don't realize
couldn't get
this.
the
They
mic
think
to
he's
work.
exaggerating. He has no clue how to turn on a computer.
we just sent a mic with a thing, but he was like, I can't figure it out. So
I'm
we'll
too
try
old
to
for this
yeah,
crap.
Yeah, but so no.
Fall asleep on
unfortunately,
your own.
But anyway, love it or hate it, but that's cool things.
Well, I'm sure you have many older folks like your mother
Yeah.
who listen to this show, but I do think a lot of trying to understand this concept is a generational thing. Because people will tell me, I listened to your show for a while and it changed my life. I don't understand what that means. I've never watched an episode of anything and had my life changed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
Really?
it's...
Nothing?
I don't know. I mean, I've listened
It's all
to
just been
shows...
books or something?
You know what it is? It might just be because I'm out of those formative years. It
Yeah.
might just be that.
That probably
Because
is it.
yeah, I mean, I've listened to shows and I'm like, oh, that's a good point, and I've remembered it. But I've never thought my whole life has changed now. And again, maybe if I was 16 or 17, where everything's up in flux, you know, and you're still trying to decide where you're going and who you are and what direction to go. But
Yeah. Or like when you're first coming back to your faith.
yeah,
You know, that,
yeah, maybe that's it.
There's, yeah, because it's an interesting point because there was a lot of stuff for me when I was first coming back, but that was like 6-7 years ago. And there was a bunch of shows, a bunch of Father Mike stuff, a bunch of debates between, you know, the old school Scott Hahn or
Yeah.
Protestant Catholic debates or whatever. So there was a bunch of stuff that, but now mostly it is books for me. Now, actually, honestly, Hallow. I mean, I listen to Hallow all the time. So it like Sister Miriam's 33-day Marian consecration on the app has changed my life.
I didn't know you had that. Tell me what that
it's
is.
So good. So we launched it and it was funny because we,
Well, and what version did she use?
same de Montfort.
She used the kind of shorter De Montfort Fortean one, that little yellow-brown.
Yeah,
100-page book
it's,
sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's but she adds her own pieces to it. But it's, oh gosh, it's so good. So we had launched it. We recorded it like 2 years ago, and we did a little launch of it. And then I was just sitting in adoration after Christmas Day during the Christmas season, and I was just praying. I was like, I want to do. There's a statue of Mary, the Blessed Virgin there, and I was just like, I want to do a Marian consecration. And so then I texted our team and I was like, let's relaunch the Sister Miriam thing on Jan 1, her feast day. And we're like, okay, let's do it. And it was like the biggest spike since outside of Advent or Lent that we've had of just people praying it. And so I'm way behind. So what are we in now? February, but March. But I've got like 5 or 6 days left in it, and so it's 33 days.
Yeah.
But it's so.
Oh, I love
it's so
Sister
gorgeous.
Miriam.
She's so good.
She's been so instrumental in my life that at one point I told her, from now on, I'm calling you Mother Miriam. She's been a mother to me. She's so
tell-
beautiful.
honestly,
and I will fight with a sword anyone who criticizes her.
The coolest thing we have. So, Sister Miriam, Mother Olga, Sister Bernice. Do you know Mother Olga or Sister Bernice?
Are they from the same order?
No, they're all three different. Sister
Oh,
Bernice
Mother
is-
Olga?
Yes, Mother Olga.
Yeah, she was
from
at the
Boston.
conference in Steubenville.
Yeah, she was.
She's beautiful. My
She
my
is.
wife fell in love with
It's
her.
just like Mother Teresa in the flesh. It's
Yeah.
just so.
She's
And
lovely.
she'll just call you, and it'll just be like this. Oh, it just feels like you're being spoken to by a saint. Which one she's, criticizing you is. But gosh, she's like a mother. Sister Miriam is just like, she does these imaginative prayers, and she's doing them for Lent, each Wednesday of Lent.
Wow.
But she does these imaginative prayer sessions that are just, they just make you like open, just weep, just openly, and it's just such a beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really hard actually to lead imaginative prayer, because like, I don't know, you need the right voice, but mostly you need this like very advanced spiritual life that you can then walk people through, and there's just something like, you can feel it in her voice, like there's something you.
Because it's easy to, I think, to come off as patronizing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so
Now
we're just
imagine
gonna.
Jesus next to you. You know,
Yeah.
if my voice did that, you'd be, well, no, I don't. He's not.
But you're
next to me."
right. It is her voice, but it's also, she just loves our
But like
blessed
you can
Lord.
tell that for us, Hallow, early days, it was like you could hire voice actors to do this. Certainly, you could, and most of the prayer apps are mostly voice actors. But for us, it was like, no, you really need somebody. You need somebody who's got a great voice, because you don't want like nails on a chalkboard, whatever. But you need somebody who really like believes it, who's really praying. That's why Jonathan's so good at this stuff, because it's like, he's really passionate about it. And so like he's, for Lent, it's it's the way, and then it's the story of Takashi Nakai, which is an incredible story. But so he's like going through it and praying it and telling the story as he's reading it. He's like, gosh, this is just like, but it's such a beautiful You need, you can tell, like authenticity, even in just audio, you can tell, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm really bad at like Hollywood names, but you got the guy who was from Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his name?
Star-Lord.
Yeah, that's his official name. Seriously, what's his name?
Chris Pratt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, how did you get Chris Pratt? What did that look like? How do you even? I mean, you give me as much details as you want, but I'm sure you don't just call up Chris Pratt.
Sold my left arm. That's
Yeah. Cool.
no. He posted about randomly. He has like 45 million Instagram followers. So
That'll do.
which like Mark has 25 million or something. Which is, I mean, they're both obviously massive, but he posted about doing Father Mike's Bible in a Year on Hallow.
Are you kidding?
So this was like 2 years ago. He posted a
had no
screenshot,
clue.
just going through all of Father Mike's Bible in a Year. He was like day 160 or something on it when he posted about it.
We've got Protestants. See, sorry to cut you off. I want to get back to what you're saying, but I wanted to circle back to what you said earlier because I thought it was really profound. It felt like for the longest time, Catholics were in defensive mode, right? Beating off objections from Protestants, and that's where we spent our time. Dude, we are on the offensive. We are bringing the gospel. Hallow, Father Mike Schmitz, Ascension Presents. We could go on.
Fradd.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Jonathan Rumi.
Yes, exactly.
There is,
Jonathan Rumi,
I mean, I think
EWTN.
well, it's also just this, like, the more you dive into it, the more you see the beauty of the spirituality of it. And so it's just like, this
Sorry,
truth
Bishop
in the
Barron.
forms.
Should have said that. Bishop Barron.
Yeah, Pope Francis.
Yeah, we're just rushing ahead with this beauty. All right, Chris Pratt. He
Anyway,
posted
so
about
yeah,
Father
he
Mike
posted about
Schmitz.
doing Father Mike, and so we reached out to his team, and we just said, hey, would you be, open to helping invite people into prayer in some more serious way? We think, thanks for posting about it. And he was like, yeah, I use the app every day. It's, awesome. It's changed my life. Father Mike's incredible. This, like, Bible in a Year, which, like, Father Mike goes through the whole, like, it's
And
the
he's
whole Bible
not
in a Year.
holding
It's like
back the Catholic bits.
No, it's like real intense, like John 6 from a Catholic perspective. It's everything. And, but anyway, it does for all of these folks, and it's hard for us, like, as, it's one of the things I talk about just because it's hard for us as people who are, like, deeper in their faith, or who have been, and I've only been for whatever, 6-7 years, but who have been for a bit of time. It's hard to understand how crazy hard it is for people in Hollywood or tech or whatever, like, that the whole world is against it. Like, still, even though it feels like it's changing a little bit, it's like, it takes real courage to be like, no, I'm going to stand up and be like, hey, you guys should pray, or like, you guys should meet Jesus. Like that, I'm going to use this platform I have. And so there's just so many systems and so many things that in Hollywood that are trying to be like, no, like, let's just focus on our careers. Let's just, and not even just specifically with Chris, but with everybody that we work with from a, like, Hollywood perspective. And I don't know, we also get this, like, Hallow's goal is, like, the core, the soft spot of our mission is to reach out to the folks who have most fallen away. Like, that's why I think God has us doing this thing. There's a bunch of resources for everybody. We have a bunch of folks who are on the app who take their faith very seriously. I use the app every day. I take my faith very seriously. It's an honor. We have, like, monks and priests and bishops and nuns who are praying with the app every day. But, like, I think why God has Hallow existing is to reach out, to be something that can reach out to folks that are usually really hard to reach out to for the church. And so the vast majority of the content on the app is, it's Sister Miriam, or it's Father Mike, or it's Bishop Barron, or it's some Mother Olga, or it's some spiritual guide. Jonathan does a bunch of content reading scripture, but it's some, what we would call a spiritual guide. But then what we've seen be really beautiful is getting to partner with somebody like Mark Wahlberg or Chris Pratt, and they have the courage to be like, hey, I'm going to use my platform to invite other people to prayer. And, like, we have a ton of stories for the last, 2-3 years that we've been working with Mark, of people who haven't been to church in 10, 20 years, who just are scrolling on Instagram, who just stop and say, that's like the guy from these movies I know talking about Mary or talking about Jesus. I might as well give it a try, even though I don't know what it is. And then they meet Jesus for the first time. And it's just like, what a blessing. But it takes real courage. So anyway, it's a long conversation with a bunch of different parties. These people are each, like, their own companies, essentially, because they're massive. And so it takes a long time, but then finally, or eventually, he was like, you know what, I want to do this, so we're going to do this. And he is just, like, we recorded with him for Lent. he does these fasting Fridays with Mark on Fridays, and he was so good. He was like, I've done a bunch of voiceover work, and I don't enjoy voiceover work as much as like on camera work, because it feels more like I'm just working, like it's less like I'm like really involved. And it was like, for some reason there was just something different here. Like it was like, I loved this. Like this was like an hour where I just got to like be engrossed in scripture and just the Lord, and like what a blessing that was. But anyway, it was hilarious because he's we tried to write some funny stuff, but he's pretty funny. He's much funnier than I am. And so he like starts off these Friday sessions with Mark. Mark will...
Are they together in a room recording? How does
we try to make it feel like they're together in a room, but Mark was
Did you fly out to record him?
Yeah. Mark was in London and Paris shooting a movie, so we went there to record with him, and then Chris was in LA. Okay. But anyway, Mark like starts by I probably won't deliver it as funnily as they do, but he starts by saying like, hey guys, this year, because Mark always does these fasting challenges, it's a different fasting challenge each week, so that through Lent we can kind of fast from the different things that are holding us back. And he says like, this year I'm going to be joined by Chris, who as an Avenger, as Star-Lord, knows a thing or two about like discipline and fasting and whatever, but just to be clear, like I'm the main guy, like Chris is the second guy, like it's me first. Like I'm the main discipline guy. And then we had just prayed the Litany of Humility on Ash Wednesday, and so he's like, I guess I'll have to pray the Litany of Humility a couple more times. And then Chris comes back, and we didn't write any of this really for Chris, and he was just like, man, Mark, like I am really looking forward to watching you grow in humility, because if you can grow in humility, that will prove that we truly have an awesome God who's capable of miracles. Maybe a few fewer selfie videos, maybe a couple with your shirt on.
Amazing.
It was so funny. But anyway, it was, I don't know, for us it's just fun to get to, the vast majority of Lent, again, is like, it's Jonathan, it's this incredible Japanese priest, it's Father Mike, Sister Miriam, and then Cardinal Sarah on Saturdays goes through his kind of silence. He wrote this book, Power of Silence, and so he kind of teaches us how to sit in silence and the beauty of silence and all this stuff, which is beautiful recording. But then to get to have Mark or Chris or whoever it is invite people into prayer is just like, you just see this. It can reach out to folks who haven't encountered the Lord in decades. So it's cool. It's a blessing to get to work with them.
What was it like getting Cardinal Sarah? And if you don't mind, tell people about the criticism you received recently about Cardinal Sarah.
I told you this off air, but I got an email. We get Twitter and emails and everything is a very humbling place. So we appreciate it. It helps us grow closer to the Lord. And we appreciate any feedback from anybody. But we got an email that said, I'm canceling Hallow because, which was just directly to me, which was a funny one. But I'm canceling Hallow because you guys had a female cardinal because you're having a female cardinal on the app. And so that you're aware, the Catholic Church does not support or approve any female priests or bishops or cardinals. And I reply, I really appreciate you taking the time to send me this note. Cardinal Robert Sarah is a man, not a female.
It's not Sarah.
It's not Cardinal Sarah. But anyway, we reached out to him like last minute, and
where does he live?
In Rome.
He lives in Rome.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where we recorded at least. And it was, it's an interesting one because it's like, he's like, well, no, like, I don't want to do like a YouTube show about disconnecting from the noise.
What a man.
And I was like, yeah, no, I totally, like, I agree that the point, like the app is about trying to disconnect from the noise. Like that's what we're trying to do. But, totally fine if you don't want to do it. It's, and he was like, oh, okay. Like, yes. And especially if it's, just the audio and whatever. And so we flew over there, and this was Alessandra, my co-founder, went over there with one of our audio engineers. We had these two folks on our team, our international folks who did a great job working with him and his team, and recorded with him. And it was funny. They were in the Vatican. And so there's all this noise and like, whatever is very bad audio quality. And so we're like, it's going to be tough to do the Power of Silence with, but I think our audio engineers cleaned it up pretty good. So it's good. But we also had someone on our team. This is the other cool part about Hallow is like, you have these folks on the team who just have these, like we have our illustrator who obviously creates illustrations for the app, which are beautiful. But then everybody on the team has these like unique gifts. And we had someone who is a product designer who also makes icons, just makes icons, like paints them. And so actually our international guy had purchased one for his wife as a gift. And we were like, can we bring a gift to the Cardinal? And he was like, well, maybe my wife will sacrifice the icon that I just purchased from another employee on the team. And so we brought him this icon of Jesus. It was really beautiful, but It was cool. It was, I think his book is incredible. And then it kind of like leads you into this time of really just silence to be with the Lord, which like the coolest things we see at Hallow do just happen in silence. Like it's just these stories of like the Lord reaching out to people and sharing them. Like we had this one young woman who had never heard that she was beautiful. She was 20-something years old and had never heard that she was beautiful from anybody in her life, which like as a father of a 4-year-old girl breaks my heart. But she like prays in silence, like a 10-minute of silence thing on the app. She had heard a gospel, but then spends like 10 minutes in silence on the app. And she just hears the Lord say, stand up and go to the mirror. And she goes, and she says, you are beautifully and wonderfully made. Do you think I make mistakes? Just like, not in the recording, not anything, just him speaking to her. And it was the first time she'd heard that she was anything other than ugly. And it's just like, oh, God just does such cool things in the silence. So anyway, for us, it's like being able to work with Cardinal Sarah, who wrote this incredible book on silence, and then try to lead people in silence. I think will be really powerful. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. How do you respond to criticism of those who say you really shouldn't be having people like Chris Pratt on the show, or who have Liam Neeson on the show because maybe they're not fully bought in Catholics, or maybe they have a checkered past, or I know you've gotten a lot of that. What is Hallow's kind of response to that?
Yeah, like somebody asked me the other day, like some journalist asked, like, have you made mistakes at Hallow?
No.
And I was like, I literally make like 20 mistakes every day. So yes, we make a bunch of mistakes and we learn and we try to get better. And it is very important for Hallow to always be like, I'm Catholic. I care a lot more about me getting into heaven than Hallow having like a couple of thousand extra users or whatever. Like so we take very seriously that everything on the app is in line with church teaching, that's authentically Catholic, and that we're trying to guide people in a spirituality and a relationship with the Lord that's in alignment with church teaching. And hopefully Hallow can be a tool for the church to lead people. For me, the most compelling person I spoke to about the Eucharist or about confession that changed my own life was the Lord. Like, I thought it was all crazy. Like, I disagreed with the church on like 20 different things, politically or sacramentally or whatever. I thought it was all crazy until I like really spent time in prayer, and the Lord just radically changed my heart. But anyway, for me, our goal at Hallow is to try to lead you into a relationship with the Lord and do it in a way that's in line with church teaching. At the same time, and this goes back to the very beginning of Hallow, we were praying about how to structure it. And we were debating like having it be just a small business that would be like what's called a lifestyle business where we can go and whatever, relax and golf and hang out and chill, or like a nonprofit where we give everything away for free, or a startup. And those are kind of the things that we were debating.
How does a startup distinguish from these other things?
Well, it's a combination of a bunch of different things. There's like an legal entity structure. So like how you decide to set up the thing is like an LLC or a C Corp or a public benefit corporation or a nonprofit. And then there's what kind of funding you raise. And so like as a small business, you would raise very different, or like a lifestyle business, you would raise very different funding than a startup. A startup, if you structure yourself as a startup, or if you call yourself a startup, what you're saying essentially is like, what I'm trying to do is build something big. From the secular perspective, what I'm trying to do is build something big, and I know that there's a 98% chance that it'll fail, that it won't be anything. And what that does is you then partner with typically startup investors who are trying to build that kind of business, like are trying to do that themselves, who are trying to say, okay, look, I'm going to invest in 100 different things. I know that 95 of them won't work, and 5 of them will work, and maybe the next will be the next, whatever, in the secular world, like Facebook or Apple or whatever. And I actually really wanted to do something where I could like relax and golf and chill you know, like that. I have no desire to be a CEO of a big company. That sounds terrible to me. I have no desire to be like famous or anything like that. All that sounds awful. And so I really wanted to build something either like as a nonprofit where we just give it away for free and keep like run like a small business nonprofit, or like have it be a small business, lifestyle business. But we ended up praying about it, me and my co-founder, and we both prayed about this 10 talents passage, which, you know, I'd never thought of in this way before that moment where, you know, obviously Jesus is saying you take the 1 talent and you try to multiply it to 10, or you try to multiply it to 5. And the one person buries their talent and plays it safe. And what I'd never really thought of before is the amount of risk involved in the person who went from 1 to 10 or from 1 to 5. Like those aren't, it's interesting because nobody fails, like nobody loses their talent, you know, in the parable, which maybe there's a story there. It's obviously not about money. It's about like the gifts that God gives you. And, you know, if you take risks with the gifts that God gives you, maybe he doesn't let you fail from the God's perspective, obviously not from the secular perspective. But for me, it was like, they must have taken on an incredible risk to go from 1 coin to 5 or 1 to 10. Like that's not, you're not putting it in a treasury bill. You're not like doing normal trades. You're doing like pretty crazy things. That's the startup. Like a startup goes from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. A big company, a normal company is like 20% growth a year or whatever. And we then both spent a good bit of time in prayer. And what we realized was, and when we talked to, we have these great groups of spiritual advisors, bishop, priests, a handful of folks. But in prayer, the interesting thing we realized is like Hallow really isn't, people kind of get mad at me for saying this, but like Hallow really isn't all that important. Like I use it every day, 3 times a day. If it's not around tomorrow, I'm going to be like minorly inconvenienced. Like I'll be a little cranky, but I can still do my prayers. I can still do my rosary. I'll still do all the stuff that I need. Whereas if my doctor isn't around, or if like whatever, Elon doesn't get to Mars, or, you know, like there's things that, or like if my church isn't around tomorrow, or even if they just shut off the daily mass time that they have, I'll be like really pissed. Like I'll be really upset. Or if somebody loses, like an investor loses. So it's like Hallow actually isn't all that like mission critical for someone's spiritual life or for the church as a tool. But what we do have as an app and as a startup is this unique opportunity to reach out to the folks who have most fallen away. Like people who aren't going to church, who aren't Googling Catholic or Christian things, and people who aren't watching Catholic or Christian media. Like it's really hard to reach out to those people. And the only real way that you can do it is by doing crazy things that almost certainly are going to fail, like a Mark Wahlberg partnership or like a Super Bowl commercial. And it's like, you know, the people watching the Super Bowl are not that, you know, we could run an ad on EWTN, which would be great. We'd be, you know, honored to get to partner with EWTN in any way. But we're not going to reach out to the folks who haven't been to church in 10, 20 years doing that. But we might through the Super Bowl. And that's the only reason, the primary reason we partner with these folks who would, you know, people would call celebrities, is because they have this opportunity to reach out to people in a way that like really very few people can, and get them to stop. The question of evangelization is such a funny one in today's world, because where people mostly are, if you're trying to reach them, is scrolling. And so it's like, okay, what's the question of evangelization? The question is, how can I get you to stop scrolling for half a second? And it's like, I would love it if it was my face that did it. Like if I could say like, hey, it'd be a lot cheaper, it'd be a lot easier for me to build Hallow. Yep. But it doesn't. It doesn't get you to stop scrolling. And unfortunately, your face is amazing, but it also doesn't usually get people to stop scrolling who don't know you. But people will stop scrolling for Mark or for Chris. And so that's like or Gwen Stefani or whoever it is. And so for us, it's about trying to partner with those folks to lead people into deeper prayer, led by these spiritual guides who make up the vast majority of the app. And I can certainly see from people's perspective, like, well, Hallow feels all about celebrities. And it's like, yeah, I certainly get that, especially if all you see is social media. If you're in the app, we don't usually get that feedback, because like 99% of the content is not by Mark or not by Chris Pratt or not by whoever. The vast majority of the content is by these incredible spiritual and religious leaders. But if you're on social media, the ads that you'll see are mostly the people whose ads people resonate with. And so you're going to see Mark's face a lot more than you'll see Father Mike's, because people like tap on Mark's face, so the algorithm puts Mark's face up higher. And so it can certainly feel from outside the app that it's a lot about celebrities. But our goal is to try to partner with these folks, which again, it takes real courage to do this for these people. to reach out to their audience or to reach out to the folks who know them, who are fans with them, to invite them primarily into a real relationship with the Lord. Now, they're great content creators too, like they're great voice actors, so Mark can do a great job of like pumping you up on Fridays, but just a little piece on Fridays throughout Lent. But like, you know, all that being said, that's like the context for why we do any of this. You know, there's like we learn every day, we learn every week about how to do this in a way that is more fully in line with church teaching and more fully and authentically Catholic. And we make a ton of mistakes, both in how we present people, how we talk about people, who we add to the app, and all this stuff. And it's really important for us to make sure that we always stand with the church on every important issue, especially life. And we get better at that. We get better at that, hopefully, as we go. And people, so we really do appreciate, even though the feedback is, you know, usually negative, I do appreciate it, both because it's humbling and like that's good for my soul, hopefully, but also because it helps us to try to be better. So hopefully we be better.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, anyone who's putting anything out online knows what it's like to get criticism, knows what it's like to be attacked by, you know, a Twitter mob, quote unquote. I don't know, for me and others, what seems to be very important is to have trusted people in our orbit who can see things clearly. You know, because when everyone's coming after you and telling you how much you've failed in a particular area, it's like a smoke bomb goes off. And you can't, I mean, if you want to be humble, you want to be self-reflective, you want to repent if you need to repent, but also you don't want to repent of things that you haven't actually done wrong. Yeah. And so it's like, how do you navigate that? I know for me and others, having a trusted group of people to be like, did I screw up here? Yeah. And then, so who do you have, or who do the people on Hallow have that you go to who have more of an objective stance as they,
Yeah, for me, so Bishop Kevin Rhodes, who's of the Diocese of Fort Wayne, South Bend, he's just a super solid bishop, just a great guy. And from like day one of Hallow has been through like all of our things. And he's been awesome. And he's honest, like he doesn't shy away when we mess up. He's like, here's how I think you messed up. Yep. And here's how I think you should be better, which has happened all the time. And if he ever said to me, like, I think you need to take this off or you need to change this, I would do it immediately. Like, I'm obedient to the church, obviously. I have a spiritual director who's phenomenal. Opus Dei guy is amazing. And then we have a group, like Father Mike and Sister Miriam are great on the app. Mother Olga is actually also really phenomenal. And then there's a handful of people. I mean, you've been super helpful. There's a handful of people who, but really for us, it's primarily Bishop Rhodes. Oh, Father Frankie Cicero is amazing. But it's the people who we work with most to create content who are also the people who are closest to our team, know what we're trying to do, know our mission, and have been with us through, they get the context. So it's like, okay, I understand. Like maybe you make a mistake. Maybe I disagree with something you did and I don't want to be whatever. That's totally fine. And then it's like, but hopefully we, that group, it's probably like 5, 6, 7 people. And there's a handful of others too that I would add in there, but people probably wouldn't know. But that group of 5, 6, 7 people has been really pretty phenomenal for us.
I heard a homily recently in Australia that really struck me. He was talking about the 2 ways that the devil can get us when it comes to evangelism and living our life to spread the gospel. So like one is to make us non-reflective, not attentive, not repentant of the ways that we mess up. So we can just think we're better than we are. We don't seem to care whether we're hurting or hindering people. And, we talk about that a lot. He says the other way, though, is Satan will tell you how wretched and awful you are so that you're terrified. You're just curled up in a corner, not willing to go out and risk anything lest you be a stumbling block to anybody. And that's the other way. And so when you read people like Jose Maria Escriva, you see they're like, no, think way bigger than you're thinking and let's go win the world for Christ. And are you going to mess up, make mistakes when you try to do that? Obviously, just like the apostles did. But so what?
Well, people ask me, like, do you feel like you're attacked by, like, spiritual forces? And it's interesting. It's funny. I mean, there's a bunch of examples of that. Like, every time we go in to record something that is going to be really powerful and that has, in retrospect, been really powerful and reached out to a bunch of people, it always starts with, and these are, like, the highest quality recording studios in the world. We go to these places that record all these musicians and all this stuff, like, really top-notch studios. And every time Jonathan puts on his headphones, And then he goes to record, and there's a feedback that like is like a ear-piercingly loud feedback in his ear, and he like takes it off. It like hurts his ears. You have to like, you know, it really is painful physically. And the sound engineer is like, you know, I've never had this happen. This is terrible. I can't believe what happened. Like, you know, because this is, and so it's funny. But the biggest, so certainly we have this kind of spiritual side of things, but the biggest thing for me is, I think what you said was a really good articulation of it. It's like this combination of either vanity or pride, which is the same thing. But like the vanity is like, oh no, people don't like me, which is, it is funny actually. Cause I had you asked me 5 years ago, like, hey Alex, 10,000 people are going to hate you for some reason at some point in your life.
Are you cool with that?
Are you going to be okay with that? And I'd be like, yeah, fine. I don't care. Whatever. But it does actually kind of mess with you. Like, it's like it does actually, like, I like to think I'm some whatever, but like it does make you sad. It's like, oh, that's sad that you want me dead. Like, I hope so. It does physically.
Yeah, most of us aren't Matt Walsh. Like, Matt Walsh genuinely seems uninterested in you hating
well,
him.
I'm sure after eventually, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure it does in its own way.
Eventually you have.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for me, the funny thing about those times, and sometimes they're mistakes and sometimes they're, you know, failures. But the funny thing is that those are like clearly without a doubt the closest I've been to the Lord, like spiritually. It's like everything I do, like every prayer, like a daily imitation of Christ, a day, whatever, liturgy of the hours, the readings, mass, rosary, like everything is like this deep spiritual consolation. And that's probably because I need it. And I'm like this, I wish I was more advanced and I didn't need all this consolation from him. And like but he does. And, you know, that happens with us externally, like internet people hating you. Like, we have a big team. So there's like 100 people on our team, and not everybody's going to be a fan of me of 100 people. And that's fine. Like, you don't have to be a fan of me to work at Hallow. But you know, there's certainly, and that hurts a lot more than, that emotionally hurts a lot more than
some
like
random
a Twitter thing. Yeah. Like a friend
fake
phone you and be
name.
like, hey man, this is stupid, or like I hate what you're doing here. But at the end, that is all. I don't know. We're just going through this like imitation of Christ again, but like it is all just for me. It is all vanity. And if I actually take myself out of it, and I'm like, wait, okay, like, do I think I'm doing right now in this moment what God wants me to do? And it's like, sometimes that's, you know, repent for a mistake or change something or learn from something or whatever. But like, do I think, then it's like, okay, then why do you care what people, why? Like, it's all just vanity. It's all just self-image. It's the same thing for like public speaking. It's like, well, why do you, or like, you know, why do you get nervous at a Tucker thing? Like, why do you care? It's like, if you look like an idiot on it, it'll probably, you know, be better for God. Like, God will probably use that better, both for you and for whatever. But you just care about your own self-image. Like, you just care about your vanity.
Yeah.
For me.
But that can cripple you, right? But it can also be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll just do it.
Well, it's like, I don't know. It's
as best as I can do it.
It's like,
and the Lord, as one priest said to me, his prayer is, Lord, use even my, and I'm changing the word here, use even my bull crap as manure for their growth. Right? Isn't that good?
That's so good.
He can use everything.
Yeah, but it's
like Benedict when he was elected. He said, I trust that you're able to use humble instruments or blunt instruments.
Yeah.
And then you think, golly, if he's a blunt instrument, I don't know what I am.
Yeah. And then well, certainly. But then the other half, so it's like pride or vanity. Or it's vanity or pride. And the pride is the stuff that really messes with you.
Yeah.
Like, where you feel like, no, I want to do this because I want to do this. And like what you said, like, no, I'm a big deal. So like, I'm right. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, you're just a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a good, it's like, I don't know. You feel like, it feels like God's bringing me closer to him. So I appreciate him for that.
You're the CEO, correct? Is that your title? There is a particular cross that CEOs are called to carry, and no CEO is allowed to complain about it because no one cares what a CEO whines about. But it doesn't mean that you're not called to carry it. It's a lonely place to be. I mean, I'll take you out of it because I'm not want to speak for you, but you can imagine somebody, they're doing their best to lead this company. You know, they've got mixed motivations, but hopefully they're doing it for the right reason most of the time. And then to have people under you criticize you, resent you, silently criticize you, slander you behind your back, you gotta deal with that. And if you were like, it's so hard being the CEO, no one cares because you're the boss, and so you shouldn't have anything to complain about. So I think it is a particular cross that not a lot of people can resonate with.
Saint Jose.
Imagine being a bishop.
Oh, that'd be awful.
Like, who can resonate with the poor bishop? And so I think it's probably really important that bishops have other bishops to talk about, that you have other people.
Saint Jose Maria Escriva. This was a line that stuck out to me. We're doing it in the Lent Challenge, but when you meet with suffering, contempt, or the cross, this is from the way, when you meet with suffering, contempt, or the cross, your first thought should be, what is this compared to what I deserve?
Golly.
So
I don't do that. I just think, this sucks, God. Why have you abandoned me?
Why'd you give me? I remember this. I remember I was on a walk and I was praying and outside my home, and I was like, God, why do you give me such heavy crosses? And he was like, Alex, what cross am I giving you right now? And I was like, well, there's those 2 tweets in that one email. And he was like, 2 tweets and 1 email. That's the cross I'm giving you, man? Come on, you can do the 2 tweets and 1 email. But I don't know. I actually feel the same. I have this enormous blessing to get to have this role, and it's like I love it. It's awesome work. Like if I were to pick my job, like my dream job, it would be getting to build something, getting to work with technology in some way, getting to kind of be or learn from or spend a lot of time with monks and like really dive into the spiritual life and the contemplative life. And there's not really the intersection of those 4 in terms of like how you spend your day is, there's not really anything for me other than this. So it's like this enormous blessing for me to get, and we have this great team of people who are phenomenal.
You do. I got to
amazing.
meet them.
No, they're great. They're and I have like 2 co-founders that are. I was just had lunch with them the other day, and I was like, how sad it would be to just have to do this all alone, and instead to get to have like 3 of you. Like it feels like there's 3 of you, and like because you've been through everything, and so it's just like everything is shared. But then we have this incredible team. But I feel the same about fame, and you get a chunk of this certainly, but the like fame for me is just and it's so hard to complain about. Like for Mark or for Kevin James or for Jonathan Rumi or whatever it is, it's like it's this prison, and it's so awful. Like it's
no one's
so
interested
terrible.
in hearing
No
the
one cares about
millionaire
the
complain.
famous celebrity being like,
But
it's hard to
doesn't-
have everybody love me, and
Yeah,
it's
but
like, no, honestly, you can't eat dinner. Like you can't go.
You were telling me who? Yeah,
I
tell me
was
that.
at dinner with Kevin and Jonathan, and it was just and Kevin is, Kevin James is like one of the closest people to Christ I know in my life. Jonathan also is very, very holy, but Kevin just has this unique way of doing it. He's been doing it for a while, but he was sitting at dinner, and he's probably approached over the course of 2 hours 200, 300, like 200 times.
You are kidding me.
No.
At
by
what
different
point did
people.
you go, we should have went somewhere else?
Well, yeah, I didn't choose the place, but I was like, should we go to like a private? And Mark usually eats in a private thing or whatever, but but it's just, like, hey, Paul Blart Mall Cop, take a picture with me. Or like, hey, it's my birthday in 3 months. Wish me happy birthday. And it's like beautiful because people are fans and they're trying to, and he has this like incredible way of relating to people. And Jonathan too, like Jonathan has this unique one because, we worship celebrities and he is a celebrity of the guy you actually worship.
Oh, what
And
a great way to put it.
And
yeah.
so it's like, and so for a lot of people when they pray and they do an imaginative prayer of Jesus or whatever it was, and Jim and Caviezel went through the same thing too, but like your face is now Jonathan's. Like that's who you see as you pray, which is great. Like it's beautiful to put that physically, but then you see him in person, and it's like you treat him, and it's like Kevin, like Paul Blart, or Mark, like whatever cool movie Mark was in. But for Jonathan, it's like, oh, there's my Lord. Like I'm gonna go bow down before him. And so you have a bunch of people like come to him with crazy things that are like treating him like Jesus, asking for healings or asking for blessings or whatever. And he's like, I'll pray over you. I'll do whatever I can. But like I'm just a guy. I'm just an actor.
Yeah.
And it's this enormous weight.
The other thing I think we need to be
It's so tiring too. Like it's like if you're at a conference and you got like a line of 500 people that are waiting to talk to you, and it's important things, for you. Like they're coming and sharing like, hey, you changed my life. I was about to kill myself and I did it because of you. And you want to be infinitely present, but that's like the 201st person. And again, all of this is everybody's going to be like, oh, who gives a crap? Like you're famous and
Get
rich,
over
like
it.
you know,
Yeah.
get over it.
No,
but it's
100%.
such a hard thing to complain about these guys, these celebrities.
Yeah.
And it's like, so anyway, fame of the many allures of life, like fame, I can see the vanity, like a bunch of people telling you good things about yourself makes you feel good, but fame is just such a terrible burden. Anyway, so yeah.
Jonathan Rumi, I want to give him a shout out. He came on my.
Oh, he's so good.
He came to my studio up in Steubenville, and we had a lovely conversation. People should go watch it if they haven't. And he was so kind. He's like, "Can we get together tonight?" And yeah, sure. So we went to my cigar lounge, hung out, chatted. Beautiful fella. And then my wife came by, and then we dropped him off at his place. And you know, my wife is dealing with a lot of health stuff, and he's like, "Can I pray with you?" So we're standing outside this car by his Airbnb, and he's just placing a hand on her and just saying a very simple prayer. And yeah, it's like having Jesus pray for you. It was pretty cool. But it was he was such a beautiful guy. But here's the other thing I think about celebrities that we really need to cut them some slack is who was it who said this? Did you ever listen to Smashing Pumpkins
I love
back in the
Smashing
day?
Pumpkins.
Who's the lead singer?
Not
Bald head
it's
guy.
like 3 songs, but
Right. Love them.
I
Three
do.
of the songs.
3 of the songs.
Friggin' love all of them.
I do love their songs though.
Is everything okay? Or are you?
No, I was just checking the song I loved.
Oh, okay, you go for it. Yeah. So, anyway, he was on Joe Rogan's show, and his point was people would say, yeah, fame has changed you. He's like, of course it has freaking changed me.
Yeah.
You have any idea what it's like? There you go. That's it. You better stop that.
Classic.
Oh,
Classic.
Like, don't play the song, or else we're gonna get hit
Classic.
by YouTube. You have any idea what it's like to not be able to afford groceries, and now you're like buying a Ferrari in cash?
Yeah.
You have so. What does that do to a person? You know, it does good things, does bad things. Like they're carrying a cross that you're not going to carry, and the idea that if you had their fame, you'd be fine and totally down to earth and normal.
Especially as kids, like watching like somebody like Justin Bieber or somebody go through their whole
Yeah,
life. It's just
Britney.
like, gosh.
God bless beautiful Britney.
But I mean, money's the other. I mean, money. I think has a similar. It's hard for these folks because it's all the same thing, and each of them are like really tough. Like money can really destroy you.
Yeah.
And fame can really destroy, and it just puffs you up. I mean, it just naturally puffs you up if everybody.
you know,
comes
I
to you
think
and
it
says,
is.
"Hey, you're the best."
I think because actually Aquinas goes over all of these different things: fame, power, money, physical pleasures, spiritual pleasures, etc., and how the good does not abide in any of these, even goods of the soul, because it's God alone, eh? But I really think a lot of these things, really, we want them for power,
Yeah.
right? Because money is transactional. You want money in order to attain something else. And I think it's you want fame. Why? Well, it's kind of transactional as well. It's I want something else from this. I want to be able to control my life. And I'm afraid that if I don't control it, I'm going to be flooded and destroyed and everything will be ruined. Do you know? I think that's why we want it.
Yeah,
And, you know, whether you've got Jonathan Rumi power or Alex Jones power, my power or Alex Jones power,
Or Alex Jones.
the other Alex Jones
more
power.
power.
Yeah, man, that's so funny. We should not put your face on this thumbnail and see if we can get this to like 1 million views.
People would be so
Matt
mad.
Fradd interviews
People would
Alex
be so
Jones.
mad. They're so disappointed immediately.
But
when they click on it.
we all want the ability to control things because we're afraid of death and we're afraid of poverty and we're afraid of evil. And we think if we just had enough money and power and influence, then we can keep that at bay, which is the complete opposite message of unless a grain of wheat fall to the ground and die.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I think that's right, and I'm sure it's right on a deeper level than I can appreciate. I mean, for me, and I've been praying with this for the last couple of weeks, but it's just like vanity of vanities. All things are vanity.
Yeah.
And like how little I thought about that. I don't think about that at all. And like I don't really think I'm a vain guy. Like I don't really. Again, like if you ask me relative to people, like do I care what people think? And I'm like, no, I don't care if my hair looks good or like a shirt wear whatever. But like, man, how much of actually all I care about is trying to make other people think I'm good or think I'm successful or like look at me in the right way. Like how much of my life is actually just vanity. And it's like St. Teresa of Avila has this beautiful quote where she says, like, I tried for so long to reconcile these two things that were such at odds, which is like the things of the world and advancement in the spiritual life. And what she would do, she says, is she would try to shut herself within herself. But she said, whenever I would try to shut myself within myself, I was shutting myself inside 1,000 vanities, which is just like, how true is that? Like, if I'm going to say like, hey, silence is where you can meet the Lord, you should sit in silence, or you should sit in contemplative and meditative prayer. It's like, yeah, you should do that. But you're also probably going to be shutting yourself inside all of your worries and cares and vanities. Like, it's just, you're just in there wrestling with like, what do people think of me? Is this thing going to go well? Is this company thing going to work? Is this whatever? And it's just all so ultimately vanity.
Give me some practical ways to stop doing that then. Because I think what's so tough, is the answer, I think we know what the answer is. It's like, trust be more interested in what the Lord says and what other people say. Like, yeah, cool. If I knew how to do that, so what do you do or try to do to care less about the opinions of others and more about our Lord?
I think there's a bunch of things there. I am very much at the beginning of whatever, but of figuring this out. So I certainly will look to you more so to tell me how to do it. But St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross are just like, you have to rip it all out, like pretty aggressively, fasting. No one attached to I think St. Teresa of Avila's quote is, no one attached to the visible things of the world can enjoy the invisible ones. And St. John of the Cross is obviously the dark night of the soul, the purgative way, and all these things of like how you aggressively rip these things out. And his prayer, I love his prayer. It's like, Lord, help me to seek in every moment not what is easiest, but that which is most difficult, not that which is most delightful, but that which is harshest. And he speaks of it because he's saying, like, because what God offers you in this contemplative and spiritual life, when you actually detach from these 1,000 vanities within your head, is like this incredible grandeur. O souls created for such grandeur and called to them. What are you doing? How are you spending your time? But so I think it's, I don't know. Obviously listen more to the Lord. I think it's prayer and fasting. Now the question of fasting, I don't know how fasting, like I get fasting for like if your fear is money, like, okay, give it away. If your attachment is money, give it away. If your attachment is how you look, then, fast from looking good. Or if like your attachment is social media, fasting from social media. And so that you can detach from these things and attach to the visible things. But like intense fasting, I think it's like radical, crazy fasting. Some things can only be accomplished through prayer and fasting. But I don't know, the tough part about the vanity thing of what other people think of you, honestly, for me, the thing that's helped me most is, it's like what you said, your experience where you said something that you had no idea what you were talking about, and then you were infinitely humbled. Like the places where I felt most detached from my vanity, or like where I felt like God was bringing me closest to him in terms of detaching from vanity, was obviously through prayer and through silence and through contemplation, but also just through embarrassment and humiliation and ridicule and contempt. Oh. And like I had this one interview on Fox Business, which I had just gone on Fox and Friends and Tucker. And so Fox Business, which is great, it was an honor to be on Fox Business, but like Relative is a very small show. And so I wasn't nervous. I was like, oh, whatever. Like Fox Business, I can do Fox Business. And I get on and it was remote. And so like I set up a little camera, and it's weird to look into a camera, to talk. Totally. It's just like, I'd rather look at a person. And then when they do these remote things, sometimes there's a delay. So it's like 20, 30-second delay. And TV, I hate TV because it's just like, that you get 2 questions and 30-second answers. And so then it's just like, but I don't feel like you know me. I don't know you. I don't. And so I'm terrible at it. So anyway, we get on, it's late, it's all screwed up. And I like give the worst answer to some super easy, a question that I've been asked 1,000 times. Like, tell me about like, how Hallow can work with technology to, help somebody grow closer to God. Doesn't that feel at odds? Like a question I've answered so many times. And I just gave a terrible, like I started, like I had 2 points I wanted to make. you know? And I was like, well, there's two things. And then I just said the one.
Yep,
and then I forget the second as I'm talking. And so I just look like this idiot, like on this, you know, TV thing. And I just go down and I was just like, I was so mad. And it was so, and I was so mad at myself. And again, it was vanity. And it was the same thing, like
100%.
I had my team, like we had some all hands thing, or a team got together and we did like an anonymous questions for me. Like, ask me any anonymous questions. And like 2 of them were like, there was like 30 questions. All of them were very kind and, you know, real questions. And again, my team is phenomenal. But, you know, like 2 of them were harsh, like mean, and like character attacks to me. And, or like 1 or 2 of them. And I was like, it's just like hurt. Like, it's just like, like somebody on our team, an anonymous thing, but like somebody who works here feels that way. Like, how heartbreaking is that? But like after that, and it like, I mean, I was like brought to tears, but like after it, I just felt so much closer to the Lord. Like it just felt like I don't know. I think I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, you know, it's kind of like when you're working out, like if I was trying to help somebody work out, and I'm not a bodybuilder or anything, but I've been working out for a bit. And can you tell? I'm just kidding. I was like,
well, it's a bulky hoodie.
It's a bulky hoodie. You've got the t-shirt on showing off. But I was like, you know, if I was trying to give someone advice on how to work out and they were like, how do I know that I'm getting stronger? The answer would be like, if they'd be like, I want to be able to lift heavy things. How do I know when I'm stronger? And I'd be like, well, it's when your muscles really hurt and you can't lift anything. And they're like, what are you even talking about? It's like, yeah, when your muscles are really sore, like when you really feel that you're fatiguing your muscles completely, like that is when they're growing the most. And they'd be like, that doesn't make any sense because I want to be able to lift things. I don't want them to get fatigued. I want the opposite. And like, I think it's the same thing for our pride and vanity. It's like when you feel like they're destroyed the most, which is I think the blessing of, we were talking about this before, like how exhausting this thing can be, I'm sure for you, but it's one of the blessings of it is like you get scorned so often and so frequently, you know, which like you don't really get all that much in regular life, like just contempt from so many people, which is such a helpful thing for you spiritually, you know?
Yeah, I guess it can be, eh? Yeah. Yeah. Can I tell you an embarrassing story? I was giving a men's talk in San Francisco years ago.
Wow. The heart of Catholicism.
It was a very friendly audience, but is a talk I give to men, and at the end I give 5 rules every man must break, which is super clever. Thank you. And so I'm giving this talk, and I'm going through this list, and I think it's going pretty well. And I come to number 4, and I realize that I don't know the 5th one. I've forgotten the 5th one. I don't have it written down in front of me. I've given this a bunch of times. So this is to your point about I got 2 points, and you give 1. So anyway, so in my head, I'm like, all right, you've forgotten the 5th one. Just give the 4th one. Don't even say number 4. Just give and the final thing, and I give the last one. And then I'm like, all right, let's just wrap this up. All right, thanks so much, guys. We're just going to, I don't know, I have an American accent. We're going to close in a prayer what's the 5th one? Someone from the audience. Sorry? We said there was 5. What's the 5th one? Dude, this is what I did. This is so bad. I don't know how I should have handled this. I should have I forgot it, so you get 4 today. And that would have been fine, probably. But here's what I did. I went, give me 1 sec. I walked over to get my computer, brought it over. It wasn't on. I had to turn it on. Sorry, yeah. Boot it up. And then it turned out the 5th one really wasn't that interesting. And so it kind of wrapped up in 20 seconds.
No, that's exactly. So I gave this thing on to these Fox guys. It was the first time I'd ever been on this, met these people. And I was like, well, there's 2 things. You know, the one thing is, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I literally just, you know, they gave me 1 question. And so then I'm literally just like, and then the host jumps in and is like, well, that's all we've got for today. And I was thinking to my wife after, to your point, I was like, what would I, in a normal conversation, if I was doing that, what would I have done?
Yeah.
Had I not been so focused on myself? I would have just done like what you said. I would have been like, you know what? I forgot your question, honestly. What was the second half of your question?
Totally.
And that would have been like, fine. It's a little weird on TV, but whatever. It would have been like, yeah, okay, I totally understand that. But instead I just freeze on national TV. But anyway, it's like, I was talking to this priest before Tucker, and I was like, what if I say something stupid? What if I say something that's wrong or whatever? Or what if I look like an idiot? And he was like, well, that'd be a lot better for you. He was like, it'd be a lot better for your soul if you.
It's hard to discern, isn't it? Because people have often said to me, like, would you go on Joe Rogan's show if he asked you? And I think I wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't because I'd be really afraid of just not doing a good job
You
representing
do
the
such a
Catholic
good
faith.
job.
I think what I'd say to him or his people is, please get Jimmy Akin on. What do I have to do to get you to sit down with Jimmy
That's
Akin?
too bad because I was going to say if Joe wanted me on, I was going to have you on. So.
Well, once it goes down the line, I'll point people to Jimmy.
No, not him, not him, this guy.
So you can see there being a legitimate reason and a prideful reason. The legitimate reason is I've seen what Joe does when things don't make sense to him. Like, he'll rip you apart.
Oh, yeah, he's good at it.
Good for him, like, fair enough. He's just trying to understand things, and he has a really good way of making you look like an idiot, especially because he's got Jamie in the corner researching stuff. So I don't want to look like an idiot. That's a prideful, vain reason. The other reason is I just don't want to misrepresent. I really don't.
I know.
And so it's hard to discern which one.
Well, but the issue is it's usually both. Like that's
Yes.
I was
They're intertwined.
I was praying about Hallow. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and I was really struggling with this. I was like, it was for daily mass a couple days in a row or something. It had been something about ask, seek, knock. Ask and it will be given to you yet. And I was praying and I was like, okay. And I was really stressed and anxious about some Lent launch or something. This was like, I think it was, we did a Jonathan Rumi, Jim Caviezel first Lent Imitation of Christ. This was like 2 years ago. And I was really worried about it. And so I sat and I prayed and I was like, okay, God, like if you want to know what I'm actually worried about, or like if I were to ask you specifically for what I want, I would like, and it sounds so stupid saying it out loud, but it's like, I would like to 2.75x last Lent and hit, 1 million people in the challenge or whatever the made up numbers that I had set as targets that I had just, whatever, just imagine, whatever, just numbers. And I was like, and I would like retention, like I'd like people. And then in prayer, I was like, God was like, okay, so why do you want those things? And I was like, well, to be honest with you, there's 2 reasons. One is vanity. Like I want people to look at me and be like, oh, you're some big successful thing and you started some successful thing and you're successful. And the other half is I honestly really love this mission of reaching out to the people who have most fallen away and helping them to pray every day. Like I think you are. I see what you're doing in people's lives. I see it changing people's lives radically. I see it like even people who take their faith seriously, whatever, but especially people who have fallen away. I see what you're doing in it, and I want to keep doing it. Like I want to help you keep doing that. I want to be a part of that, and I just really care about you having a relationship with these people. And he was like, okay, well, that's easy. The first one is stupid. So like, stop doing that, like cut that out. Stop thinking about it. Every time you think about it, turn your mind to something else, like whatever. That's just vanity. Like that is just yourself thinking about yourself. And the second one is good, but don't you think I care a lot more about my children than you care about them? Like I care a lot more about me reaching out to my kids than you do. And I was like, it's fair. And he's like, okay, so then don't stress about it. Like I got it. Like I am focused a lot more on it than you are. So just like I'll use you how I want to, and maybe that means Hallow goes up, and maybe it means Hallow goes down. He will decrease, so I will decrease, so he will increase. Whatever it is, but it's like just let me have it, which is like the story of surrender, which is our whole story of everything I have ever done in my own life. But it is like like if God wanted you on Joe, like he'd have you on Joe, and you'd do great.
Yeah.
But if So there's a humility piece of it, which I think is beautiful and good. But I think for me, at least, most of the fear is vanity, not.
Yeah.
It's like couched in this, like, yeah, but what if I screw it up and what if I misrepresent? And I think even that is like, well, but I would never say something that I am either like slightly unsure about the church teaching or confused about. Like I just would be like, and then you just be like, well, I don't know. I'm not the best person to answer that question.
Yeah.
I can't really explain the death penalty thing.
And this gets back to what we said earlier. It's when you try to fluff it that you get
it's like
into
when
trouble.
you're like, oh wait, but I'm supposed to be the Catholic guy and I'm supposed to know all the things about prayer and whatever. And it's like, no, but sometimes you're just a dude.
And you know what? Like even it's not like you admit ignorance and look like an idiot. actually the opposite happens. If you admit ignorance gracefully and humbly, it actually, you get the praise as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I was talking to this Protestant minister in Ireland, and we were going back and forth about the doctrine, once saved, always saved. And I was giving him scripture verses that seemed to me to clearly refute that. And I was fully expecting him to come back at me, and then I'd come back at him. And I shared it with him ready to go, right? I'd done my homework. I knew what we were talking about today. I'm ready to go. And he said to me, I've never really seen that scripture before, which I know is silly to say because I've definitely read this. Would you mind if I spent some time in the Word and got back to you? And I'm like, yes, sure. Yes, that would be fine. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so what I realize is, oh my gosh, like I'm not just dealing with someone who wants to demolish me. I'm dealing with someone who loves Jesus Christ and wants to follow it. Now, we met later. He showed me why I was wrong, according to him. But it just showed me, like, no, you actually don't look like an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, you look like an idiot. We look like it. I look like an idiot when I just pretend to know what I don't know. But when you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry,
come
I'm an
on,
idiot.
like none of us are Chat GPT or whatever. We're not supposed to know these things. We're not.
ChatGPT doesn't know most things either, but but no, I agree. It's the honesty that, I mean, for me, it's like you see that with everybody though. It's like people I think are hungry for real, authentic, like someone who's a human.
Yeah, You've got a book on the table, and you haven't told me you wanted to talk about it, but I assume you do, otherwise you wouldn't have it there.
I have a book on the table.
What is the book? I've heard about it.
It's not my book, but I'm promoting it.
Okay, why are you promoting it?
It's
and can I see it?
Yeah, you can. It's beautiful. I can give it to you if you want.
Yes, I want
that. There's a speech in there you might.
Although if you're reading it, I'll just buy it.
I might. It's on. No, I've read it. That's the book that we're a piece. So the Lent challenge is on the way, which is Saint Jose Maria Escriva's book of spiritual wisdom. The tough part about the way is it's just a series of like one-liner meditations, you know.
Yep.
And so it's tough to like make a challenge or like a journey that you go through. And so what we wanted to do was find somebody that at least folks in the West didn't really know, and who could match kind of Saint Jose Maria Escriva's intensity.
This guy does that?
He does.
Really?
So
everyone watching, it's called, or listening, A Song for Nagasaki by Father Paul Glynn.
A story of Takashi Nagai, servant of God.
Okay.
But he's the story that we're going through this Lent. There's a speech in there that I was going to reference. But it's this crazy story, this guy. So anyway, we journey through this story in Lent, and it's like what he does in his life is bring to life or add color or give an example of what St. Jose Maria Escriva is talking about. I am going to give this to you because I've been giving all these away anyway. But gosh, it's such a cool. So he's a Japanese man in the early 20th century, which is after like 3 centuries of religious persecution of Catholics in Japan. He converts to the faith through really prayer, which is like very similar to my own journey. And so it was meaningful to me. And had you ever heard of Takashi Nagai?
No.
Great. He's like decently famous in Japan, but not really outside of Japan. And converts to the faith. He, gets married, has 2 kids, and then becomes the dean of the hospital in Nagasaki, where he lives, and is studying radiology. And on August 9th, 1945, he's like 1,000 feet from where the bomb explodes. And like, this book does a beautiful job of explaining what it is, but it's like hell. He somehow miraculously survives. He's like 2 blocks away from where the atomic bomb is detonated. And it's just like hell, like just hell on earth. Like you walk outside and everything is rubble. And most people die on impact, but then there's a small chunk of people who survive. But then most of those people who survive have approximately like 5-10 minutes of life where they're, this is very dark for anybody watching, but their skin melts from their body and they're just muscles and they're thirsty, and so they ask for water and then they die. And so he somehow gets out of this hospital, the rubble that he's buried under. He's the most senior medical professional in the city. And the hospital's on fire. Everybody is running to the hospital. And so he's trying to heal people. He's trying to fix people up, doing what he can. Some people do survive, but most people he just cares for as they die in their last 5 minutes. And there's like, there's all these heartbreaking things. Like there's a little, you can hear this little, there's a Catholic school. Nagasaki is seen as the Catholic center of Japan. And there's this Catholic school run by nuns of just a bunch of Catholic schoolgirls next to the hospital or near the hospital. And they just hear, during the air raids, they would sing the Ave Maria, they would chant the Ave Maria, the little girls. And so they started chanting it during the air raid. And so as he's like escaping from the rubble, all the medical staff just hear these girls singing this as they die for like the last 5-10 minutes. Anyway, he like has this miraculous story of healing a bunch of people, losing a lot of his life, losing his loved ones, losing a lot, like a modern day Job. But then like through it, and there's so much more I could say, but through it, like surrendering completely to the Lord. And there's this speech that he gives at the end of the book that he's kind of one of the more senior leaders of it. It was exploded in his suburb of Nagasaki. And the speech, he's asked to give a talk at the memorial, which is an open air. The church is completely demolished, but they go to the church and they have this open air ceremony for the people who have died. And so it's right after. And he gives this speech and he's been praying over it. And he's, by this point, very deep into his conversion, very Catholic, takes his faith very seriously. And he's lost, his loved ones. He's lost what's most precious to him. And he gives this speech that's just like, I have heard that the American bombers were meant for a different city, which is true. And that city was covered in too heavy a cloud cover. And so they went to Nagasaki. But then because of mechanical failure, the bomb was dropped not over the middle of the city, but over our suburb. I'm convinced that it was not the American bombers that decided to drop the bomb over us, but the providence of God. And he goes on to say this, like he's citing Revelation and all these different things, but he was like, of the war, we had the privilege of being the unblemished lamb that was offered for the burnt sacrifice, for the end of the war, to save the lives of millions, and for religious freedom in Japan. Blessed be the Lord, he has given. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the Lord. Thank the Lord for allowing us to be this sacrifice. And it's just like the craziest, you just lost your family. Like everything was just destroyed. And he just like offers it up as this surrender to the Lord. Like, hey, Lord, you allowed us to be the sacrifice. This Catholic city that has endured, just before in their recent history from Japan, was like the 26 Catholic martyrs of Japan that were crucified on the hill of Nagasaki. So like Nagasaki is this Catholic hub of Japan, and this suburb is like, you've got these Catholic schools, you've got this beautiful cathedral, you've got all this is just destroyed. And so he's like, we had the honor of being the sacrificial lamb. And then he goes on to like rebuild essentially the city. And they say, like, they describe Hiroshima as they have a symbol for the two cities, and Hiroshima is like fighting fists, which is like, you bombed us and we hate you. Mm-hmm. And Nagasaki was hands in prayer. And they say it's because of Takashi Nagai. And he went on to write all these books, live this like abject poverty life, like a life of a monk, and heal all these people and lead all these people, and like deep spiritual guide and all this stuff. But it's just, so anyway, it's a crazy story, but it's just about like how we're all called, even in our own daily lives, to like this radical, crazy surrender, even in the worst possible things, and this radical, crazy faith. And St. Jose Maria Escriva, like, this is my point, like, he's a very intense guy. It's like you read his stuff and it's like you need somebody who's like really pretty intense to live that up or to bring that to life. And Takashi Nagai does. So anyway, that's the story of Takashi Nagai, which is the story we're journeying through for Lent.
That's amazing. How does Father Paul factor into this? Father Glenn.
Takashi Nagai wrote a bunch of books. He's actually also a poet, so he writes a bunch of poetry too. But Paul Glenn gives the biography. Father Glenn gives the biography of his life, so it's a biography.
How did
Takashi
he?
Nagai.
Do you know how he came into contact?
I don't know. I don't think it was a direct. I think I think it was after he passed. But it's I don't know the details of Father Glenn and how he wrote it, but he does a beautiful job of bringing to life, because he has this really cool conversion story. So it's this whole story before the bomb. Obviously, the bomb in Japan is when he becomes famous, and like they make movies of him and all this stuff. But it's this whole spiritual journey leading, like any like great surrender, this whole spiritual journey leading up to this. And then afterwards is this beautiful, and his relationship with his wife and his kids and all this stuff is, Father Glenn does a great job bringing to life. And Takashi doesn't usually write about, he doesn't have a biography like St. Teresa of Avila does or anything.
Yeah.
And so it takes a, Father
Yeah,
Glenn
I've been
does a great
hearing
job
about it
bringing
more
to
and
life.
more lately. Yeah.
Takashi?
That book in particular.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There we go.
Don't know how.
I like it.
Could you, different topic, can you tell me about Gwen Stefani?
Yeah.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
She used to be the lead singer of No Doubt.
Yeah.
Or still
A
is.
band. She
was big back in the 90s,
She was
maybe?
big back in the 90s.
Yeah.
People still love her. We tried to get an ad saying, ain't no hollaback girl, I'm a Hallowback girl.
Okay.
And there's some copyright.
Again, so just like
She's a
earlier,
musician.
when I didn't know
She's
who
a
Chris
musician.
Pratt's name was,
Yeah.
obviously these are very famous people.
Yeah.
It's my fault that I don't know who she is. I mean, I
know any
remember
of
some of her music,
reasoning.
but if you're able to tell me, what's her spiritual journey been? Is she a practicing Catholic or?
Yes. It's in the Lent Challenge. She shares her spiritual journey, so folks should check it out. But it's beautiful. It's she went through a tough time, like a few years ago, and I can't say like a ton about it, but you can hear the stuff from the story that she shares. But she then came to her faith in this like really radical way. Started praying the rosary every day.
Wow.
Started using the app every day, and that was one where she reached out to us.
Wow.
I think, and was like, "Hey, I just love this app. Like, is there anything?" And we were like, "Yeah, like it's like," and she came out with this song that was really beautiful. That was this like prayer. It was like a Christmas time song, but it was. She said she was just on a run. It was after her like kind of reversion, I guess. I don't know if she would call it that, but she was raised Catholic, kind of fell away during her music career times, and then came back to it, recently, and has been praying the rosary. This is a beautiful conversation about like, how to pray the rosary and how to give ourselves to Mary. And
Come on,
the
that's
beauty of it.
incredible, dude.
Yeah, but it's really cool. I mean, it's like, for somebody who's a Gwen fan, like to get to be like, oh, the rosary, changed her life is. Anyway, it's a cool story. And then I think someone prays the rosary, but it's a beautiful little session. So folks should check it out. But she's got a cool story.
Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. Is that it?
know.
I think it is. Try that out. If that doesn't work, just go to hallow.com on your computer. The promo code's Matt Fradd, pretty sure. Why am I asking you? You got 8 million. I really should know this. I'd like to apologize to everybody. We'll put it in the description below. But you get 3 months free. So you don't get charged a dime until the 3rd month, right? So try it. If you don't like it, cancel it. And if you've tried it before and have canceled it, maybe give it another shot.
It's better now.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's way better. It used to be terrible.
Okay.
It was like when you started promoting, it was just like purple squares.
Oh,
and
sure,
like
back then.
10 sessions on it.
I love that sales pitch. Try it. It used to be terrible.
Try it. It used to
way
be terrible.
better.
It's not as bad now.
All right. So here's my final question for you.
Yeah.
What is one prayer or session of prayers or readings on the Hallow app that doesn't get nearly the kind of attention you wish it would because it's objectively awesome and you wish more people would listen to it? Or is that not a thing?
No, there's a lot. I mean, I go through kind of like seasons. And it's kind of the cool part of the app and how we tried to structure it is like people can resonate with different things at different times in their life. And for me, there's a different thing. So I do think the Marian consecration is phenomenal. So like there's a St. Joseph one that Sister Miriam does. Oh, they're both amazing. Honestly, the daily imitation of Christ is Jim Caviezel does it. And it's phenomenal. He's like super intense. But it's beautiful. For me, the Litany of Humility is the Litany of Humility and the Surrender Novena are the big ones. But it's people. Those are decently popular. So that one's. I really like the chant on the app though.
My personal favorite is
I
your
like
lo-fi.
lo-fi.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Or there's this Bible story song of it's this beautiful reading of Song of Songs, and
Yeah, gosh,
yeah.
it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll make your knees buckle, or at least that's what my wife says. I don't think that's true.
It's
But-
romantic. It's romantic.
Yeah, but I always go back to Scott. Man, he's got such a good voice for that kind. What are you still doing Bible stories? Because I feel like
we haven't done as many of them. We have a lot of them.
all right, can I
we should
admit
add some more.
something that's embarrassing and probably says something terrible about me? I don't think it really does. I like some ASMR.
Yeah.
And I know that ASMR gets weird, I get it. But having someone just read quietly the Gospel of Luke or anything
No, it's really good.
that doesn't get weird,
I love it.
where no one's making weird mouth noises in my ears, I would love that.
Yeah, we could add some more. I gotta get Cardinal Sirah to do some.
ASMR? Please don't do that.
sleepy. It'd be tough with the accent.
Maybe see if you can find a Cardinal Sarah. She might be able to do it. Not Cardinal Sarah.
Lord, pray for us. Lord have mercy.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, what a
and
blessing.
thanks for the good work you're doing and continue to do. Okay, last question. I know I said I had a last question. Here's the last question. Do you ever consider, like, what's the off-ramp? Like, how are you going to wrap this up and not go down in flames? Like, are you tired of doing
might
this?
go
Are you
down in
looking
flames.
to exit Hallow personally at some point? Is that too personal a thing to ask on air?
No, I would do this for the rest of my life if God lets me.
Because I know they always say that, and I'm not saying this is true of you, but the company sometimes outgrows the CEO, and it's brutal to try to get the CEO to recognize that. I can think of at least two companies. How it's possible. I mean, it's true of me too, right? Like maybe someone else should do this, and I'm not seeing it. But I know of two companies. I've actually, well, I won't say any more than that. Two companies where the CEO had to essentially be overthrown because it outgrew the vision of what this thing could be, outgrew the vision of the founder. That's not always the case, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's an important piece in there about like governance. So like, I don't want Hallow to ever be like something that's just trying to maximize shareholder value. So like, you know, the vision of it is important to have in somebody who is doing this for the faith and not for some, you know, profit thing or something. I mean, it is like we were talking about this. It's a tiring thing to do. Like it's a lot, especially during like the crazy times. It's nice because there's like, you know, the summer's a little bit slower or whatever, but you get a little bit of a break. But it can be a lot. It can be pretty tiring and it can be exhausting. But I don't know. I just keep coming back to like, you know, there was this couple that wrote us this note, and it was just today, just a couple days ago that I read it. And he was like, hey, we had never taken our faith seriously. We had just gotten married and we had just gotten pregnant with our first kid. And we lost him, miscarried our first kid, and we were destroyed. Like it just totally wrecked us. And we found Hallow and started praying with it. And like gradually started learning what like surrender to the Lord meant, and gradually started learning what like faith and a contemplative or meditative or spiritual, like what we were called to, a relationship with Jesus, like what a relationship with Jesus was. And then we got pregnant again, and we were so filled with anxiety and stress and dread, and like it just wrapped us up. And we miscarried. We lost him again at 5 months, and we were sitting there in the hospital holding our baby in our hands. And just like broken and destroyed. And we prayed this prayer of surrender, and had it not been for being able to trust, being able to cast some of that on the Lord, like we didn't do it perfectly, but like had it not been for us beginning that journey a little bit, I'm confident it would have ended us. Like it would have been the end of our relationship. It was just such a heavy pain. And we prayed over him. We found some sense of healing. And then, you know, we're able to try to grow a little bit in our surrender to the Lord and our faith, thanks to the, you know, grace that God gave us through Hallow. And then God gave us a kid, our first, you know, born son, who was born, whatever, a couple months ago. And I just wanted to thank you guys. We prayed a prayer from Hallow over him once he was born. And it's just like I would do that. It's funny because you probably experienced this too. Like if you don't stop and like really think about those individual stories, like you can just glance over them, like,
It's
oh,
true.
somebody changed your life. No, you changed
It's
my
true.
life. Oh, you brought me to Jesus. Oh, you brought me. But it's like if you really stop and you're like, wait, for like 10 minutes, I'm just going to sit with what happened in this person's life. And like, I would do that forever if God let me. And yeah, I'm sure Hallow might, it will either outgrow me or crash and burn terribly, and everyone will hate me and whatever. That's totally fine. Most people already do.
Hopefully not.
It's good because the name the name gives me some anonymity. You
It's
know?
nice.
It's like if you Google Alex Jones, I'm probably never going to come up, no matter what I do.
Exactly. There's always going to be an Alex Jones
it's
more
always
popular
gonna be,
than you.
know, unless I'm fined $1 billion.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So it's tiring. It's hard, but I don't know. It's the race. It's the race God has me in for now, and
Praise
He'll
God.
do whatever He wants with it.
All right. Thanks for being on the show.
You rock, man. Have a good one.